And hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing co-host,
Happy New Year. Stephen Frederick is here.
Steven the Medium, who's my husband, my co-host, and my better half and partner in life. And yes, Steven, today is the first show of 2025, and I'm super excited because honestly, I this is one of the topics every time we do our first show of the year that I really love talking about because I think it's such a powerful way to really we have an opportunity to start the year so powerfully. So today's show is about harnessing the power within, designing your best year yet. I love that, by the way.
Sure.
And that is something that you and I talk about throughout the year, not just on January at the beginning of the year. So that's just a way of living for us. But before we get into the show, before we get into the conversation about how we get there, let's check in, Steven, because we just got back from a beautiful trip to Puerto Rico. And honestly, I would say you and I said that this is probably one of the best trips we've taken in a long while. So, how are you?
We hadn't been for a year, and the trip to Puerto Rico was fascinating on so many levels. It was just wild how some things happened. The highlight besides being with you and being in Puerto Rico and seeing your family was hands down Cheyenne. Can I just say that?
Well, you may have to explain to people a little bit about who Cheyenne is and the circumstances around meeting him.
Okay, so in the Latin culture, Latin world, everyone is very well aware of Ricky Martin, and Cheyenne is the same level in the Latin world. I mean, Cheyenne is a singer, he's an actor, just him and Ricky Martin are fabulous, people and amazing people. But I don't know how it happened, but I remember just one day seeing a video of Cheyenne, and I just, as much as he sings in Spanish, I just fell in love with his voice, and I just fell in love with him, and just follow him now, and I've just always liked him. And so Elix took his aunt out to this beautiful brunch at the San Juan Hotel. And it was gorgeous, and we were outside and just sitting there, and Elix's cousin Eva Milagros, who we've talked about so many times, was sitting in front of me, and Elix was at the end seat to the right of me, and Eva was in front of me, and Ava's daughter Mariana was next to me to the left, and Ava said, "We have a celebrity here." And I looked at her. I'm like, "A celebrity? Who?" And she's saying it, but she's saying it so quietly that I can't hear what she's saying. So finally, I looked at Mariana. I'm like, "Do you understand what your mom's saying? Who's the celebrity?" So she leans in and says, "Yeah, it's Cheyenne." And I'm like, "Cheyenne, not Cheyenne the singer." I almost ripped Mariana's arm off. I was pulling on her, and Ava is like, "Shh," and she's smiling and saying, "Shh." And so Mariana's doing the same thing, and Ava says it's to her right. So I look to the left, and lo and behold, he's sitting at a table with his wife, and baseball hat and glasses, and it's Cheyenne. So I said to Ava, "Oh, can you go up to him?" No. And then, of course, I said to Elix the same thing. And clearly nobody was biting and no one was going to go up to him. So I'm like, listen, I can sit here and this is my big chance to actually introduce myself, or it's just going to pass me by. And when am I ever going to again see Cheyenne? So his wife went up to get food because she was bringing him food. And as soon as he was by himself, I got up and I heard Elix say, "Oh, God." So I walked up to Cheyenne, and introduced myself and just told him what a huge fan I was. And I was with, my family and husband. And, he looked over and Elix yelled out. He was with, he's with his tias, his aunts. And it was fantastic. And at the end of his meal with his wife, he came over to the table and we got to take selfies. And one thing that was, I mean, it just made me feel so good was he said to the table that he loved my approach, that my approach was so respectful and very sweet or very nice, and that's most likely also why he came to the table. Even though I said to Elix, after I talked to him and came back to the table, he was still eating. I said to Elix, I am using every connection I have in spirit, and I'm willing in his brain that when he's done, he comes to this table. So I think it was kind of both him just liking my approach and seeing the Puerto Rican family, because he's from Puerto Rico, and came over and we talked to him. We took pictures, and Elix's aunts were like amazed. And there's one picture, if you're on social media, that has me and Elix's aunt like kids like in awe of him. Like, right, Elix, my expression?
Yeah, because, I mean, when you talk about who he is, Ricky Martin, it's well known in North America because he broke through the North America, world. And Cheyenne is legendary in Latin America. Just like Ricky Martin is. So that's the difference. He is legendary. There's no Latin America country that would not recognize him, that would not know about him and who he is. So yeah, my family, they were like, in awe of having this mega superstar at our table, taking a picture with us, and because he came to the table. So it was really. It was just wonderful. So I'm really glad that we had that opportunity. And, honestly, I think that is one of those experiences that, because it was so meaningful for you, Stephen, you created that opening for my aunts in particular to have such a meaningful, New Year's Day also, because they were blown away. They were beyond blown away. That's how amazing it was. So what a way to really start the new year. So I'm really happy. And for me also, Stephen, Puerto Rico was different this time because I didn't have an agenda of things I needed to do. I wasn't selling my mom's home. I wasn't cleaning my mom's home. I didn't have to go to an attorney. I didn't have to do this or that or the other. And in the past, for many years, that's what we've done. We've gone to Puerto Rico with an agenda, and it feels like we got to get this done. We got to get this done. We got to get this done. This time, there was none of that, and I felt really relaxed. I felt that we did what we wanted to do, and it was awesome. And despite the loss of power in the island, and many of you reached out to us to see concerned, because of course that made national news. If we were okay, we were fine. We stayed in an apartment that's managed by Marriott, and they had generators. But the reality is, the power outage didn't really affect our experience, our state, one bit. So
it didn't. It didn't at all. And
no.
Even the next day, when so much of the island was still out of power, the hotel was up and running. That area in the metropolitan area was already getting their lights back on. So, knock on wood, we weren't affected at all. We just kept going on our merry way and just seeing the people we wanted to see and your family and doing what we wanted to do. And it was like one of the most relaxing trips I think I've ever had.
Yeah, and it was wonderful because, again, the apartment allowed us to just sit on the porch or the balcony and have wine and just be there. And that's the first time. I don't ever remember a New Year's Eve where we weren't at some party or doing something. This was the first time that it was just you and I sitting, having a glass of wine. That's it. and it was
Yeah,
wonderful.
well, earlier though, we were in Old San Juan
Yeah,
with
yeah,
your family, and
of course.
that was so amazing to be there New Year's Eve night, just strolling through San Juan, Old
Yeah,
San
yeah,
Juan.
but I meant that we, yes, of course, we had dinner, early dinner. We went to Old San Juan. We walked the streets, but by 10 o'clock we were back in that apartment.
Yes,
We
yes.
weren't in a crazy party, with lots of people. It just, and it felt wonderful. It really felt wonderful. But listen, I do have a special shout out, that I don't want to miss. So I have a client. Her name is Margot, and she is from Omaha, and she has a young son. His name is Amir, Ameer. And Margot, because of course she's a client and she's in conversations with me, was talking to her son, who is an athlete. And I guess I'm gonna paraphrase the conversation based on what she told me because I wasn't there. But she said that as an athlete, he wants to pursue big things in his life, but he was told by some family members that some of it may not be possible. And Margot, my client, said to him, "You need to listen to Coach Elex, because Coach Elex will tell you that anything it's possible if you have the right mindset and you do the work." So this young, by the way, he's 13 years old. I think I'm getting their age right. He went on YouTube and he found Get a Grip with Coach Helix, and he started listening to my episodes, and he became fascinated about being the best version of himself. So he went back and told his mom what he's aspiring to, what he's going to do, because Coach Helix says that he can do anything that he puts his mind into. How amazing is that? So, Amir, I know you may not be listening live now because you are in school at the moment, but when you listen, and I know you will be listening, I am just saying to you, you can absolutely do whatever you want, and don't allow anyone or any circumstance to derail you. Life, it's going to happen. Yes, sometimes good things happen. Sometimes not good things happen, but you can still pursue what you want. You can still play big and go all out. Go play your best and biggest game. I am your supporter, and you have also Stephen the Medium here supporting you. Stephen, what would you say to this young guy?
I would say, Amir, I love what Elix just said, and I would start with saying, Amir, I know you know this, but clearly you have a really good mama that actually directed you towards Coach Elix or any positive avenue in just making sure you remember that exactly what Coach Elix just said, that you can do anything in throughout your journey, no matter what someone says or their opinion or their perspective has nothing to do with you and doesn't change anything about you, and you just stay with what you want to do and you'll get there. So, and I love this. I love that you did a shout out to Amir and Margot.
So there you go. So with that said, we got to get going. We have to take a small break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how you can harness your own power within and design your best 2025 yet. We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing co host,
Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium, who is an attorney, a medium, my husband, and my amazing co host. So, happy 2025. We are starting the new year. This is our first show of the year. And with that in mind, we're going to talk about how we harness our own power, the power that we all have within to design what the year it's going to look like. You know, and the truth is that, of course, the clock did reset. And it resets every year. And every year we've been presented, or we are presented with a new season, with a new opportunity, endless possibilities, and the power to decide, to shape what that year ahead is going to look like. Now, oftentimes, Stephen, we're stuck with what we call those traditional, resolutions. But the fact is that, and this is, I've done many shows in the past with the statistics. The fact is that by mid-January, over 50% of those resolutions are forgotten, and we no longer remember what it or care about what it is that we said we wanted the year to look like, whether it's to be healthier, to do something different, or whatever that is. So the question is, how do we shift, Stephen, from that traditional goal setting that often doesn't work because it's designed to have you hope for something and wait for something versus you really looking to create what it is that you want and looking to create what 2025 is going to look like, not what you hope it's going to look like, not what you think it's going to look like, not what you wish it's going to look like, but rather what you say it's going to look like. And that's a very, very different kind of conversation. You get what I'm saying, Stephen?
Yes.
So how do we get there? And this is a conversation, Stephen, that you and I have often, because for us, the new year is the new year, but we don't wait for January 1st to work on and create what it is that we want our life to look like. We work on it every day. So what does that look like for you, Stephen, when we talk about harnessing that power that we all have within and designing 2025 rather than hoping for a better 2025?
Well, I think I've also, you've done shows like this, or we've done shows like this before, so I've also have mentioned that I'm not a big proponent, as you just mentioned, of New Year's and starting 2025. My perspective is not what I can do for 2025. My perspective is what I can do presently, and that's what I focus on, right? And I know most people, it's a reset, it's the year, and I get it. As you mentioned, Elix, it's the tradition, and everything's looked at on an annual basis. So I think, maybe from my perspective is maybe throwing out to people not to necessarily look at the landscape of 2025, because I know that's what you want to do, and that's sort of like that's part of your goal or your vision, and I get that, but I think a focus on what's going on currently and present is really important to start. And, I always use the expression forward from here, meaning that it doesn't matter what date it is. It doesn't matter what time it is. You can reset forward from here at any point in your life, right? At any stage. And I think, harnessing, I think you said your control, this is not easy, Elix. Because, this morning I said to Elix that I'm having a very difficult time, not being able to handle the feelings I'm getting from California because of these fires. And as a medium, I feel things, and that's how this works. But I've never been in a place of, look, I always feel bad. and unless I'm reading you, then everything comes out. But I've never been in a place of just walking around and I can't get rid of it. It's like I feel it, and I think a lot of people do. And something on Instagram I just a couple of days ago or yesterday I just posted about how the spirit world is so peaceful and the physical world is so angry, and it's impossible for these two to continue, on their paths without some kind of I think I put I don't remember what the word I put there, but like something's gonna
Catastrophe,
a
like
catastrophe. That's right. I did put that. Something's gonna like it's gonna be a big thing. It's gonna blow up, a catastrophe, whatever the case may be. And I think this year, if you're looking at starting something now or getting your control back, this is like probably the most challenging times we have because of getting over the pandemic and getting over COVID. And I was listening to a podcast with this Dr. Aditi Narakar, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And she's she's an expert in stress, and she's worked in, I think she was the director in Harvard Medical School, and she was she was in this interview and she said that 7 out of 10 people right now, and pretty much she started doing this sort of test from the pandemic. 7 out of 10 people are in a chronic state of stress. So in a long-winded way, I'm answering your question because you cannot do anything with getting your harnessing your control or looking at your happiness, your desires, your passion, your dreams, if you are in that chronic state of stress. And I think that's sort of, for me anyway, I think that's where I need to start. And I think hopefully a lot of people need to start of, are you one of those 7 out of 10 that's in this chronic stress?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is so such a good reminder, because that brings me back to being self-aware, right? Being mindful of what is happening within you, because if you are in that constant state of stress, you can then you're hoping for the best. You're hoping for the best inside, a constant state of stress, which is not. It doesn't create a pathway for the best to show up. And again, we talk about that all the time. I have a different strategy, Stephen. My strategy, I was reading a book, and I may have talked about, it's called The Art of Possibility. And in one of the chapters, one of the authors talked about creating a game. And the game, and I don't remember the specifics because I sort of changed the game a little bit for what I wanted my game to look like. But it was something like using, I am going to, or this will be my best blank ever. And again, it almost gives you like a blank slate. And, I'm going to have my best, my best vacation ever. I'm going to have my best holiday ever, whatever that is, right? So I started practicing that. And Stephen, I actually started practicing that when we went to Palm Springs. And if you remember, during Palm Springs, we were dealing with a whole lot of stress around who's going to take care of Django, because he lost his brother recently, and I just said, you know what, I'm going to create the game. This will be the best vacation ever. And guess what, Stephen? Everything worked out. Everything worked out. But I reminded myself every day. I would say to myself, this will be the best vacation ever. This will be. Then I started my day saying that to myself. I repeated that throughout the day, and at the end of the day, I said the same thing. I did that when we went for the holidays, by the way. I was very preoccupied about the holidays, because I still missing my mom. So I said, you know what, let me create a new game. This will be the best holidays ever. And you know what, Stephen? We had an amazing holiday season this year. I did that for Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, we had the blackout, right? Could have been a nightmare, but it wasn't. It was just an incredible, incredible experience. So I said, you know what? Maybe this is a way for me to design what 2025 is going to look like. So I just my game, my personal game, simply became bringing gratitude. So I'm already grateful that 2025 is my best year ever. So that's what I say. Thank you for making 2025 my best year ever. And that becomes the foundation for me, Stephen. Now, that alone, it's not enough, of course, because you gotta work. You gotta put your words into actions, and you have to, and actions require that you have a plan and that you do, what you said you're gonna do. But that alone puts me in a state of mind where I'm not hoping for the best year. I'm not wishing for the best year or thinking it's going to be the best year. I'm simply already thanking the universe, God, the higher power, whatever that is, for making 2025 my best year ever. So it's already the greatest year. It's already the best year. And it's almost like the same thing when you and I were looking for a home. We visualize our home, our dream home. We didn't have it, but we knew it was there. We knew it existed. So that's, for me, that's a way that I think it's a useful. It can be, and again, I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think this you and I are sharing our two different perspectives of how to go at it. What are you thinking, Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that it is two different perspectives that have such importance on either side. And again, I think those perspectives come from our lives and where we are right now.
Absolutely. And one other perspective that I'm just reminded of is we need to take another break, Stephen. So let's
Yes.
take a small commercial break, and we'll be back with the conversation how to harness your own inner power and design the best 2025 ever. And hello, everyone. Welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing co host,
Stephen the Medium.
Stephen the Medium, who is also an attorney, a medium, and my husband. And just the best person I could have by my side.
Thank
Ever.
you.
Yeah. And today today's our first show of 2025. So, what a perfect opportunity to talk about how to harness your own power within and design the best year ever for yourself. And, Stephen, one of the things that I think about when we talk about harnessing that power within, right? Uh, when you were giving the shout out to Amir at the beginning, you said something about, no matter what anyone says, no matter what others tell you, you know, don't listen to that, right? And that,
Yeah.
and that what that brings me is that sometimes part of harnessing that power within is about recognizing those self-limiting beliefs that we all have, recognizing that somebody else's opinion of who you are and what you do has absolutely nothing to do with you, recognizing that we should not be comparing ourselves to others because who you are is one of a kind, and perhaps also, most importantly, is recognizing our own inner critic, who is very active, and sometimes not just our own inner critic, but really we validate. We spend so much time validating somebody else's criticism of us, and all of that is really designed to take our own power away, and it's designed to derail any action towards moving forward. So, my question to you, Stephen, and again, I love asking you these questions because you have such a unique and different perspective, from that spiritual connection. What would you say to someone? What advice do you have to someone so that they can be aware of all of that and also be able to harness that power within that we all have as well?
Well, that's the reason why I brought up in the last segment about chronic stress, because when we're in chronic stress, no matter what you say to anybody, it's not going to be distributed into the person so that they can understand it or they can process it. So it doesn't matter what I say, it doesn't matter what anybody says if you're in that sort of chronic stress. And just the reason why I was bringing that up, Alex, too, is that, I don't know, several weeks ago, I was just thinking of just my day and just like so many of us, how life is just coming at us, and your kids say something, your family says something, you're in traffic, you're yelling, you're at the grocery store, the line's taking too long, you're aggravated, all of that. That's all that part of that chronic stress. And I am going to answer your question, but to get there, and something that I have learned so much from you, because you are way well versed in this than I am. I never realized, and I'm have been, and not anymore, but just a walking chronic stress ball, and meaning that every second my inner critic was just on me and on me and on me, and I was so comfortable with it, and I was moving forward with it, and that's just really sort of where I was. I did not realize until I spoke to you, Elix, that it's not just about when you're stressed out about anything, it's not just about, what you're feeling, because that's sort of like an effect of something. I didn't realize that your brain plays into this with the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. And I started really also doing, my own research on podcast and talking to you, because like I said, you're very well versed in this, and found out from you that, that when you're stressed out, that amygdala, that hijack, if you will, that you taught me, is supposed to be temporary. That fight or flight. but we're all walking around it in it permanently, or it's not temporary. It's just, it's there. And it's this also this, all this chronic stress that's not going anywhere. And, when you're in there, you talk about how can you harness your own powers when you're not listening to what people think of you and whatnot. I mean, it's even bigger than that from my perspective anyway, because when you're in that place, it's, your goals, your dreams, your best self, like your connection to spirit, your happiness. None of that is possible because you're sitting in this chronic stress, this inner critic, and it's so difficult when in this life because with social media it's coming at us all the time. And to answer your question, when you said what do you have to say to Amir, I just thought because we were talking about it, but that's a good place to start, is to really understand that the second you listen to somebody that is either, saying something negative, or you can't do this, or, oh, I think this would be way too hard, is the second you have no more of your power. You've just released it to that particular person, and it sits there. And again, to answer your question, how to get it back is really understanding that no matter what someone says, it does not affect you. It's one thing I had just heard, because so many people in that listening to people and believing people, there's also, and as you know this, Helix, that competition piece too. Like you're competing and you're comparing yourself with somebody. And I remember I was listening to a podcast and I can't remember who it was, said, the people you should be closest to are the people that are in your profession. And most people aren't, because they feel like it's competition. There's not enough. There's blah, blah, blah. And you and I talk about this all the time. And I love what this person said. This person said, no, it's the complete opposite. You should be very close to them, because when they're being successful, that shows you there's a formula to get there. And then you derive your own way to get there. I thought it was brilliant. And I think it's when you start remembering that, where you're coming from, nobody can touch that, is when you start really taking your power back and then harnessing, your own powers and back to the goals and dreams and everything else.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't know if you were self-aware of how you were describing when you talked about meeting Cheyenne, right?
Right.
And you talked about how I didn't want to go up to him, and my cousin didn't want to go up to him. And then you said to yourself, if I don't do this, this opportunity will never be presented again. So that alone, that shows you, and it shows all of us, that we all have the how to. We all have the power and the mechanism to get things done. We just have to move past the fear, past the narrative. Oh my God, it looks bad. Oh my God, what are they gonna say? Oh my God, they're gonna think this or that about me, or I'm gonna look foolish. Because at the end of the day, that is that's what you're talking about. That's that chronic fear that is designed to put the lid on what is possible. See, and maybe you did it not even knowing that you were doing it, but the desire to get up and meet this person was greater than the fear, or that own self-limiting inner self that may be saying to you, oh, don't do it, you'll look foolish. What if he doesn't acknowledge you? The desire to do it was much greater than that. So you stepped into action and you did it. And that's the point, Stephen, here. When we're thinking about designing 2025, you got to be willing to put yourself in that place. You got to be willing to say, yes, I am willing to say my 2025 is going to be my best year ever. I don't have any evidence of that, but I don't need to have evidence. I'm just making a declaration. And that alone puts everything in motion. And you know that because we've been talking about that. You get what I'm saying?
I get exactly what you're saying.
So that if you're listening, I want you to really listen to begin to ask yourself, what is it? What is it that I want so badly that I know, I need in my life that you would be willing to be unstoppable for? And start by writing it down. That's the first step. Again, there's going to be plenty of narrative in the background. Our brain is designed, believe me, our primitive brain is designed to quell that threat, because that brain is gonna tell you, well, if you make that public and it doesn't happen, people will laugh at you. You'll be look foolish, or you'll be embarrassed or disappointed. Yeah, that's what the brain is gonna say. And you have to be willing to put the pause on that, and and still create specific actions to move you forward. And maybe that's what we'll talk about. We got to take another break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about what would that look like? What are some of those specific actions that may help you move forward? We'll be right back. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get a Grip with Coach Elix. I'm your host, Coach Elix, and with me, my amazing co host.
Steve in the medium.
And today we are starting 2025 with the first show of the year, talking about harnessing the power within, designing your best year yet. And during the last segment, I suggested that perhaps we should talk about what are some specific things that you could do to harness that power within. And so I have a few suggestions. One of them is start by reflecting on what the past year was like for you. But here's what I'm inviting you to do. Oftentimes, when we reflect on the past year, we focus on what, Stephen?
The failures.
Correct. Very good. You get an A. Yay. Yes, that's what happens. By the way, I was just with a client recently, and that was the conversation. And he listed everything that did not go well. I said, but that's interesting because you also had one of the most successful years ever. So let's talk about that. But 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 the failures were so like in the forefront that that was what was present, what didn't work, rather than no. Let's actually talk about what were your biggest wins. What were the biggest things that you were able to accomplish? So I would say, reflect on the year, but focus on what actually did go well for you. Also, think about, clarifying that vision for yourself, what it is that you want, and make it as clear and specific as possible. Oftentimes, a vision should be something that should be written down. I tell people that all the time. If it's not written down, a vision that is not on paper is just an illusion. It's like some idea up in the air. So write down what it is that you want. For Stephen and I, we talked about the house of our dreams. We knew specifically how this house was going to look like. So again, whatever that is for you, write it down, because it is the moment you write it down, it makes it real. If it's not written down, it's just something, it's an illusion out there that's not necessarily real. Then I also would say, get clear as to what are core values for you. What are the things that really matter most for you? For me, and I know for you, Stephen, we talked about, purpose-driven action. Everything that we do comes from purpose, comes from we love what we do because it's ingrained. It's one of the core values. Being somebody who creates an opening for somebody else to be the best version of themselves. That is a core value. So be clear as to what your core values are. And I would say perhaps the last thing, well, not the last thing, I would say practice harnessing that inner strength and mental and emotional resilience, because that is the part that may derail you most frequently. It's that inner dialogue, that inner conversation that is fueled by fear, by the what if, by the fear of failure, by the fear of ridicule, by the fear of whatever that fear may be for you. So practice that emotional resilience, both mental and emotional resilience. And it may be, hey, do something every day that you normally wouldn't do due to fear. That's a way to harness that inner strength and resilience. And then I think this would be the last thing, is you have to have a strategy for action. A vision without action is just a dream. An action without vision just passes the time. But vision with action can transform, can and will transform the world. And by the way, that was a quote by Joel Barker. I didn't make that up. I know it sounded really good, but it was not my own quote. So, Stephen, what are you hearing here? And, what else would you say to our listeners as a way to harness that power within and create a powerful 2025 for themselves?
Well, I love what you just said, because I hope that people write down what you just said, because as you mentioned about writing stuff down and then just looking at it and then, following it or catering some plan to follow all of that, which I love. And, I think my biggest piece of advice to everybody moving forward is you can't control anybody except yourself or the way you respond. And I only say that because I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine, who was telling me that a bunch of her friends went out and she wasn't invited, and she was just going through this whole thing about, how crappy she felt, how insecure. Did she do something? She doesn't understand why she doesn't get like asked to go, and it was good friends. And then it was not going to be in a place of setting up that prime best 2025. And then she started, as she was talking to me, started trying to control like the feelings she had, the feelings that she felt less than, and that she wasn't, she wasn't looked upon as one of the group, of women. And towards the end, after we had the conversation, I didn't really say too much because we didn't just have a lot of time, but I just thought to myself, my God, what I wish I had more time to say was just maybe look at it like, just let them do that. They did it. You can't change it. Let them do it. Like, listen, nobody owes us anything. No one owes us a damn thing, right? And I think that when you just sort of, okay, let them, they had a good time, they blah, blah, blah. And then you just start looking, at your response and not sitting in that and just thinking, when's the last time you reached out, and just sort of take inventory of where you are. But the greatest thing is that I think the second you say, okay, it's done, let them do what they want, I think you start feeling better, and then you can sort of assess where you are, and you're starting in that process taking back the control. And I think that is one of the hardest things that people can't figure out, is that we can't control anybody else. And whether you're in traffic, whether you're in the market in a long line and you're getting pissed off, and it happens to me, it happens to so many people, and it just gets building up and building up and building up. That is the amygdala, and that is not the place you want to be, because nothing's going to change that. And if you just say, let the grocery line lady talk and do her thing, and it just sort of removes it from you, and you're just in a better place, and you have your control back. Because the other way, you can't control the person. You can't speed it up. And if you went to a manager, you turn around to the person behind you, can you believe this is happening? Blah, blah, blah. It's just not going to help. That would be my advice, is the understanding you can't control anybody else.
That's right. And I would say this is a correction I not only use for myself, but I use for others. When it comes to what you envision for 2025, stop saying, I hope to have this, or I hope you don't have it. That, it may be hope for I have. Change hope for it is mine. Change hope for whatever it is, that it, changes that meaning and context from a hope, something, out there.
I am.
I am. Change hope for I am. That's really wonderful, Stephen. So I hope this has been an inspiring message to all of you. Again, we didn't talk about resolutions because resolutions they don't work. This is an opportunity for you to design what 2025 it's going to look like. But Stephen, I wanted to leave a few minutes because I wanted to just talk a little bit about LA and what's happening there. And I know I've learned this from you, the power of collective positivity, collective healing, collective prayer. There's nothing like that. LA, it's like a second home to us. So the devastation that is happening there feels like almost like personal, like we're going through it personally here. So, Stephen, anything that you would invite our listeners to think regarding LA?
Yeah, just take a second. That's all you need to do is just take a second and just send positive, healing, light prayers to envision that these fires are done, and envision anybody who's going through this loss, or God, the people that have passed away, just for the people that surround them and families and friends. Just do whatever you can to send your energy, because you're so powerful. Send your energy and positivity and healing to them.
That's wonderful. And in particular for the firefighters that are fighting these fires, in first responders, and those individuals who have already experienced personal losses. We are collectively engaging a chain of prayer and positivity towards LA. Thank you for listening. Stephen, how can people get a hold of you?
Stephen the Medium, it's that easy.
And Coach Helix is that easy. And thank you, Mark Clark, for producing our show. Thank you, WARA. And Jim, our general manager, for always being there in the background, supporting us. And we'll be back next week. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.